It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! It's Feedback Friday. It's been a busy week. You can tell how busy my week has been from how messy this part of my desk is. I got like a makeup bag that has nothing in it. I have a mesh bag that Zelda turned into a toy. One of the many things Zelda turns into a toy. Morty's butt is here. There, turn around, Morty. Yeah. Oh, I peeked on Morty's butt. All right. That sounded really wrong. Never mind. Scratch that. Yeah, okay. It's gonna be one of those days. Okay, so it's the feedbackiest day of the week, and there were a lot of really good long comments on Monday's video. But first, because a lot of people have been saying I like your ongoing coverage of Veilguard because I've just heard so much shit on the game, and as I'm progressing, I guess people are holding back like the shit that they've heard to see my impression, and some of the things just what. But okay, so I am further into the game now. I have all the characters, and I will say that so far the characters, I like them. And I want to talk a bit about Taash, because that's the one everybody's freaking out about. To me, she's an example of, it's not the, she's not Kunari, but, because she doesn't follow Kyun, but Kunari character, like that type of race. She's not the character I would have wanted in the game, but the character she is absolutely fine. You know, as sort of a grouchy monosyllabic teenager. A teenaged Kunari raised in Kunari culture would have been interesting, but she's just some teenager because she's a treasure hunter. So, again, I haven't had a lot of time with her, but I don't dislike the monosyllabism has given me a chuckle a few times, but I think the very strong reaction to that character might just be because we want Kunari characters to be, well, as old folk like me, who were adults when Origin came out, want Kunari characters to be larger than life, right? Like the Arishok. The Arishok was peak Kunari in Dragon Age 2. Even Sten, in the first game, sort of, and Taash does have that deadpan going on, but she wasn't raised in the culture. So I can see how people could get the environmentally friendly Krogans from Mass Effect Andromeda vibe from Taash, but the character as written is fine. It's just not the experience I wanted. And going into this game, I realized I was not the target player. I'm 45 years too old, right? So, sorry, 25 years too old. I'm not 65. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm in my mid-40s. Nobody makes games for me because I'm not a guy. And that's the thing, right? Like, even though my instincts run very typically male, my experiences have not been. But I've been a gamer since 1981, so nobody makes games for me. And occasionally I'll get a game that is just so very much itself, like the Alan Wake franchise, that it speaks to me because it's not trying to, it's just telling its own story. But a game that is calibrated for mass appeal, I'm not part of that mass. So some people who are struggling with Veilguard, I find a lot of them are about my age. And it could just be that, we're not the demographic, and it could be, And the other, a lot of the other characters I like. Emmerich, really cool concept. Ethical necromancer, love it. Actually, my least favorite character is Nev. And she might be a second playthrough kind of character, but she just seems so calibrated. Oh, she's the pretty one, right? I love Balara. Love her. Davrin, okay. Davrin's like familiar. I'm trying not to spoil it because I was like, yay! But Davrin's a Grey Warden, so long time might know what that means, but in terms of familiar. But even Harding, who I didn't like as much as everybody else in Inquisition. I didn't like Inquisition as much as anyone else. Really growing on me. And Lucanus is that his name? Yeah, I think so. But anyway, the guy who is bitter, like who likes black coffee and is driven by spite, the Antivan. Inner voice again. Why do they all have beards? But I'm like, he likes black coffee and is driven by spite. That's my dude. But yeah, the characters are really good. I wish they had another 6 months to polish the dialogue. Like before they went into recording. That is a damn shame because it shows somebody knew how to write characters. Just Rook's dialogue is hot garbage. I hate the dialogue wheel and it's worse than ever. Like lines straight up clunkers. Whoever wrote the comedy lines, holy shit, BioWare, please call me for a punch-up on your next game. It's so bad. And it's too bad because the combat, honestly, best in a Dragon Age game so far. So that's my little Veilguard update. If you like this, if you like me, courting punishment every week by not going with the crowd on things, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Yes, I am wearing, we did a Spider-Man, we did a Spider-Man thing version. I got one that, so we did some Spider-Man shit. But I wear this one out of the house. So one's black and one's gray, so I can tell the difference without glasses. And you'll notice I'm still wearing these glasses. Yeah, the other ones, the ones that turned out to be sunglasses, they are back now. So hopefully they are getting fixed. Okay, so comments. I'll save the first time commenter for last because I got really excited. Like, this guy wrote a whole essay and it's amazing. So I'll get to that at the end. Somebody else said, this is all in response to Monday's video about how to support struggling boys. One person said, oh my God, yes. Gosh, yes. I remember so much of this from my childcare days. There was this thing among especially the boys where asking them to stop a certain behavior would lead to an escalation of said behavior. I honestly think it was because so many of their parents didn't give an opportunity to course correct. The parent sees the behavior they don't like. So many of their, they ask their kid to stop, but then don't give them any time to comply, and a punishment inevitably follows. Pointing out the behavior is inextricably linked with consequences for the behavior, so given that, may as well keep misbehaving until the hammer falls. I dealt with this by making sure I made time and space for course correction and praised kids who got themselves back on track. There was one time I remember when two boys were playing chess and started squabbling. I came over and one of them said their friend made an illegal move. A glance at the board showed that was pretty obvious. They asked me what I thought and said, I think that chess is a game that requires honesty. If you can't play honestly, if you can play honestly, then there's no issue. If you can't, we'll put the game away. It took about 10 seconds for the boy who made the illegal move to take it back. I thanked him and started to walk away. When they asked, so we can still play? I said, there was an issue and you fixed it. So I don't see why not. Just no more illegal moves, okay? And they were really happy that one mistake didn't lead to a full consequence of losing their chess privileges. They went strictly by the form book after that. Yeah, I'm glad somebody else saw it, because people so anticipate punishment that they don't take the second chance. And it's tragic, because I understand exactly the dynamic that's going on, but I have to be like, And some will give it a chance and they thrive, right? And others will not, because they can't trust. And sometimes people take a bit and come back and then they trust, and it's cool, and those make me really happy. But it would be so much easier if we taught, and I mean, these are the methods that work on me as well. So when we say just boys, no, some girls will benefit from this as well, right? Like, I did well in school, but it was miserable, and it didn't have to be that miserable. And yeah, thank you for that comment. Another person said, really, showing compassion to students is the key, but unfortunately, some people seem to have the idea that showing any sort of compromise or flexibility with children is the same as outright enabling bad behavior and letting children run amok with no discipline or consequences whatsoever. I wish more people would understand that there's a difference between authoritative parenting teaching and just outright overly permissive parenting and teaching. Well, it's important to set boundaries with children, at the same time expecting children to be mindlessly obedient robots who can't express any sort of autonomy in their choices is too far gone. Children are still humans and are still enabled to basic human rights. Thank you. Likewise, that feeling of constantly anticipating a negative outcome only for it not to happen and then falling into a state of self-punishment is another one of those issues that just hits hard for me, because it's one of those things that I constantly find myself slipping into on my worst days, and is probably the root cause of my bouts with imposter syndrome. Like, I constantly feel the worst possible outcome when I mess up and either anticipate the hardest form of retaliation imaginable. And when it does it, I end up spiraling into a negative feedback loop of self-punishment. It's a lot of reasons why I felt a sense of autistic self-hatred during my teenage years, a constant fear of being seen as getting special treatment, or being lumped in with those people who use autism as an excuse for problematic behavior. It's like a really messed up form of self-accountability that I probably need to unlearn. Okay, I'm going to help you with that, okay? With the messed up form of self-accountability. Now, I hear that a lot, about getting special treatment or people who use autism as an excuse. I had somebody try to pull the I can't keep my story straight because I have ADD this week. It didn't work. Yeah, there are some people who use this stuff as an excuse. But getting special treatment is the one that kills me, because giving people what they need isn't special treatment. And, you know, somebody with ADHD needs a firm deadline and may need, like, a lot of people I know with ADHD need somebody to be accountable to, so they'll get things done. And so I'll do a thing like I'll put in my calendar, you know, did you eat lunch today or something like that? And so I'll message them, and usually, because they knew I was going to do it, they'd have done it. It's this weird thing where the brain won't self-start, right? And that doesn't take very much, you know? But the thing about accountability is when you do accounting, there's two sides to the column, right? Checks, balances, right? You balance the sides. Debits, credits, there we go. Accountability isn't self-blame. And it isn't being brutal on yourself. It's making sure both sides balance, right? And the whole self-punishment thing, it's infectious, right? I have had to really do a lot more maintenance work on myself recently because I've been dealing with so many people that are like really roughly punishing themselves while I'm around or spiraling when I'm around. And it is like that old, an alcoholic being in a bar or a smoker being around a bunch of people smoking. You feel that pull to go back into it. And I actually started doing it. And I had to check myself and go, okay, I have to go back and I have to kind of, I did this whole exercise on the It's Not Therapy podcast where I talked about the fact that because I have body dysmorphia and I had an eating disorder when I was younger. Technically, I still have it, but I've got it under control. But whenever things are really rough, whenever I feel like people are being rough on me, it automatically translates to you're ugly. And I work on it, but it's like Sisyphus and the rock, right? You get it so far and then it rolls back down and you got to push it back up the hill. But pushing it back up the hill is worthwhile. And I talked about the fact that instead of trying to convince myself that I'm some great beauty, again, mid-40s, they age characters in Dragon Age because it's been 10 fucking years in game continuity and the usual suspects go, she's ugly. No, she's not. She's an attractive, older woman. Fuck off. And then I realize, yeah, they really can fuck off. I don't care about the opinions of people that see an objectively attractive woman, and because it's not the right trophy, it's not the perfect trophy or anime style features, then it's either waifu or ugly, right? My God, I guarantee you that the guys saying this are not perfect physical specimens themselves. Right? And it's just, do I want the approval of those people? No, I don't. So I don't care if I look like a, fucking orc, a particularly unattractive orc, like one of those Warhammer orcs that, the 40K orcs that cut off one guy's head, stick it on another guy's body, like that kind of fugly. It shouldn't matter because, like, okay, people are attracted to what they're attracted to, but sapiosexuals exist, right? And that's how it works. You can't convince yourself of something you're never going to believe is true, but you have to find the truth that is most motivating for you. The brutality that girls are subjected to regarding their appearance is very similar to the brutality that boys are subjected to regarding toughness. It's not better or worse. It's just different. And people think that we've put all this work into girls, but a ton of it is just lip service. Girls' body image issues have just morphed from weight. The weight thing's still there, but people are quieter about it. But it's gone from weight to age. Older equals ugly. You're supposed to massacre yourself with surgery and fillers to look artificially young. And Lord, no. I mean, I sit there and stare at Michelle Yeoh in movies, and she's just aged so gracefully. And I think she's 61 or something like that. And like, she looks good for 61 instead of still trying to look 30 and, have a face full of fillers and all that stuff. And it's like that I want to be Meryl Streep, cool, because I'd never be happy around those people. And it's the same with boys and typical male behavior. Do you want to be around people who are that machismo? No, then it doesn't matter. Hang on, just responding to somebody. Be right there. Okay, so I'm gonna get to the commenter New commenter made me very happy. And it's a long one, but I didn't really know how to separate this. It's so good. So here we go. Moving this over. This is a bit of a long one, so I hope you can see it and read it on Feedback Friday. But if you don't, it's fine. It's my first comment on your channel. Yay! Honestly, I think boys could really benefit from going back to mentorship or apprentice-style education, like how it was before modern schools took over. Those old systems offered hands-on practical learning with a mentor who gave personalized guidance, structure, and real-world skills. Boys often thrive when they can learn by doing, see the immediate purpose of their work, and build trust with a role model who holds them accountable while supporting their emotional growth. Unlike modern schools that often label boys as troublemakers, mentorships focus on their strengths and progress, fostering discipline and resilience without making them feel alienated. Leanna's comment, I am a big fan of apprentice-style learning. More on that in a bit. But I get that we can't just scrap the entire education system. Instead, we could blend these old school methods into modern schooling to bridge the gap. Schools can introduce vocational training, mentorship programs, and project-based learning to give boys more hands-on, purposeful education. By focusing on practical skills, emotional awareness, and nurturing relationships, this hybrid approach could tackle the unique struggles boys face, helping them succeed both academically and personally. We could also get parents involved through workshops where mentors teach them how to support their son's development at home. Using boys' interests like gaming, sports, or whatever they're into as engagement tools can make learning more relevant and enjoyable for them. Instead of harsh punishments, focusing on restorative practices would allow boys to reflect on their mistakes and learn constructively. I love this comment so far. Emotional support is key too. Regular check-ins with counselors or mentors trained in emotional awareness can help boys develop healthier coping mechanisms and feel understood. Plus, building partnerships between schools, local businesses, community organizations could provide real-world apprenticeship opportunities and a supportive network. Leanna's comment, that's what Big Brothers used to do, Big Brothers and Sisters, and unfortunately all the groomer stuff has tanked interest in this kind of stuff because people understandably don't want to be put in a situation where they could get accused, right? I have to disagree with what you were saying about how traditional roles are not a causation, but just a correlation. In my opinion, it's not a correlation because traditional roles are a foundational influence on how boys perceive themselves and the expectations placed on them. When boys are told they need to toughen up or suppress their emotions to fit a rigid ideal, I think it's not necessarily because of society, but because of what they're directly or indirectly taught by the people who raise them, like their parents or other authority figures. It's something boys naturally gravitate towards as they emulate the examples they're exposed to, including fictional characters like Batman, Superman, Goku, or One Punch Man. These characters portray strength, resilience, and emotional control in a way that inspires boys to try to model themselves after them. The problem is that boys often misunderstand how those traits work. They see the stoicism and physical strength, but fail to recognize the emotional depth and complexity those characters actually have. For instance, Goku's optimism, Batman's deep sense of responsibility, and Superman's empathy are just as important as our physical strength, yet boys often focus only on the surface level toughness they display. This incomplete understanding leads to the suppression of emotions and the belief that showing vulnerability is weakness. If boys were guided to see the full picture, how these traits are balanced, they could better understand how to navigate their own emotional and practical development without feeling like they're failing to meet some unattainable standard. I also think most boys, and even men, tend to break rules not because they want to be rebels, but because they're wired to figure out how things work. Biologically and psychologically, men have a tendency to explore, test, and even break things as a way to understand their environment. This instinct isn't inherently bad, but the problem today is that many boys don't know how to channel it in a healthy way. Bringing back mentorship and apprenticeship like we had before standardized education systems could help guys like myself, and even women with similar personality traits, thank you for adding that, learn how to explore and experiment constructively. It would give us the guidance we need to understand the world while developing the skills and discipline to succeed. By weaving mentorship and apprenticeship elements into our current system, we could transform education into something that truly supports boys' growth and potential. It's about giving them the structure, support, and practical skills they need to succeed, not just in school, but in life. Yay, good comment. Okay, let me deal with the disagreement first, because it wasn't, that was a bit of a cover my ass move, because I can't prove causation, so I retreat to correlation, right? And I do still think, like you said, you know, the toughen up messaging goes hand in hand with the harsh punishments that boys receive. And I do think that it's the harsh punishments, not necessarily wanting to be tough or strong, that is the main reason that boys don't do great in school, because the traditional masculinity predates the academic crisis with boys, right? We had that. However, as you said, commenter, that there was more of a one-on-one or one-on small groups thing for boys to get that further understanding, and that idea of only seeing the surface, like, tough guy elements of a character. Unfortunately, I've met a lot of adults that fall into that trap. The example I keep giving is when the whole freak out over She-Hulk happened, and I said, why are you choosing to identify with the asshole in the sports bar or the bad dates instead of Matt Murdock? And they're like, well, I don't have superpowers. Like, it's such a surface level understanding, you know? It's like, no, there's more to Matt Murdock than a world on fire, right? Like, there's more to it than that. And it's the comment about breaking rules. That one really hit home, because my crackpot theory about how to get more girls into STEM, how to get girls into computers, is to actually allow them to get hands-on with computer hardware. Because this is one of these things that girls are curious as well. But, I mean, as much as the boom is lowered on boys for things, if girls break something, heaven forbid, oh my God, you are a failure at everything. You're encouraged to be inert instead of go out and do things and break yourself and break other things. I broke myself a lot because I like to climb and I like to build ramps. You know, I liked physics, like, in real life. And people reacted, not just worried that I hurt myself. Adults were embarrassed and ashamed that I did something so weird. And it was, girls aren't supposed to do that. And, you know, just the way people gave me so much side eye about Dungeons and Dragons. I talked about this, and the fact that a teacher who was very like military style, old school, didn't get it, but let me do it, I thought was really good. And I think that you can't raise girls to be small and quiet and don't move and don't break things. Just be good, be good, be good, be good. Be good, E.T. And then go into STEM. It doesn't fucking work. You have to let them learn how to put in a fucking RAM chip. I was talking to somebody, another woman this week who, you know, needs more RAM to play a game. And I said, oh, RAM is the easiest thing to change yourself on your PC. It's just whoop, whoop. And if you turn it on and it doesn't work, take it out. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world. And then I started going, just make sure you have the same type of RAM, like your DDR4, DDR5, you know, it's like, I don't know what those are. It'll be on the box, right? But if as early as, like, you know, the 7th grade, girls were encouraged to just get your hands on parts and put them on. And if you break it, it doesn't matter. That's the point. I think we'd have a lot more women in the skilled trades. Because I remember in shop class, you only got one shot to make something. And if you didn't get it good the first time, you failed or you didn't get a good grade. And like, you only get good at anything with your hands by screwing up and doing it again and screwing up and doing it again. And in a computer game, that's fine because nothing's lost but time. But when you get into stuff, oh, you wasted wood, you know, oh, you wasted metal. No, you didn't. It's there to teach you. It's there to learn. And so I think that, play-based learning, exploring things, giving kids more than one shot at this stuff. And I understand it was budgetary stuff. I do. But I loved the wood lathe. And I did not get nearly enough time on the wood lathe. So satisfying. Right? Like, but a lot of kids were scared of it. Because that first, right? But oh my God, so satisfying, right? But I'm one of the few, give me bugs, give me snake, and it was, it was those teachers that just let me try it, that allowed that to thrive. I mean, I think I talked about a pottery class where all I did was make monsters and dragons the whole time. And the instructor thought it was wonderful. My mother was horrified because it was these like stock-eyed, like Peggy teeth, like just freak shows. But I was just like, yeah, like it was like, this is my jam. The inside of my brain on the outside. I literally made a tree that was supposed to be made of brains out of pottery. And they're like, oh, you gonna glaze it? No. Because this looks like brains. And the teacher thought this was amazing, right? Like, I was really lucky. And because of the fact that boy stuff in the 80s and early 90s, better than girls stuff, boys who had atypical interests didn't have that same chance, right? And I do think there's sort of some trauma there, where those boys grew up into men and went on to be parents, and they're so afraid for their boys that they'll be rejected, that they replicated the same kind of thing, right? Now, there are some really good parents out there, some really good dads, and I do think that the hybrid approach this commenter mentioned is the way to go. You've got to get people without degrees into the system, not to teach, to mentor. The same way with what I do, a lot of my clients have therapists, right? So they'll work with their therapist, and the therapist will tell them something, and they'll come in and tell me this. It's like, all right. And I'm like, okay, how do we translate this? Like, how do we work this? How do we go, okay, how do you feel about that feedback? Let's try some stuff, right? It's that parallel that works with men and boys better. And it works. It does great. People actually get results. I mean, I've been doing this long enough now that I've been working with people for a couple of years now. And I've had some things lately where I realize how far these clients have come. When you think about 2 years in a human life is nothing. People spend a decade in therapy and don't get this far. They've come a really long way. And it's astounding to see the progress. And I'm not sure if they see it. They see it in bits where they'll get a different reaction, or they'll realize that something is very different, and then they kind of have a moment, right? And the nice thing about me being there is I take notes, and I'm able to track how far, like, people have gone back to, get more education. They've changed careers and they're just thriving. They've been tackling really old demons, and it's just having mentorship. It's just having someone go, well, this is what this means. This is what I did. Maybe it won't work for you. Let's find something that does. It really does work. and it works for everybody because it's custom. This can work for boys. This can work for girls. This can work for non-binary kids. I don't know why we don't do this, because it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. You know, you don't have to spend a full teacher's salary. I do think you have to pay people to make sure they show up and stick with it. But it'll be part-time, right? It'll be a couple days a week. And if you do hire somebody full-time, that same mentor can work with, like, you know, different kids on different days. It can work, and it's cost-effective. So I don't understand why people don't do it, but I'm very glad the new commenter commented. Thank you, new commenters. So here we go. We're done. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for somebody who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Discord people who are on the Discord, look at the game of the year of the game stuff. Year of the game. I'm going to get your suggestions in. I'm going to collate it this weekend. Nominees next Tuesday, winner Christmas Eve. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.